Welcome everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the knife tool in Blender. Now I'm going to start off by hitting Shift A, Mesh, Cube. And for location on the Z axis, I'm going to hit 1 and hit enter. So that's standing on top of the grid. Now if I hit Tab, I go into edit mode. And then for the knife tool, it's just down here. Right here, you'll notice if you click and hold, you also get the bisect tool underneath that. Another way to access the knife tool is just simply by hitting the K key, unless you change that for any reason. Okay, now the basic function of this tool is you just draw cuts. In other programs, this is called a cut tool. You just click, left click, and you just sort of do this, and then you just hit enter, and then you're done. So now, if I go back to grab, I can just select these edges, select these vertices, hit 3, and I've got this polygon here. You can extrude this polygon out, and you have that geometry. Now let me Control Z through that a little bit. Go back to the knife tool again. Now another thing to keep in mind is that when you're doing this, it will snap to other vertices. In fact, since I can say, having worked with 3ds Max and Maya, I feel like Blender definitely works a little bit better in this regard. I felt, especially in 3DS, I had a really hard time getting it to snap, and I just felt like I was accidentally kind of making one right next to it. Enter, like it would constantly be the case where I would accidentally have one like super close to it like that, and I would have to constantly go in and like grab this, move it, grab this, move it, just to check to make sure that there wasn't a second one right next to it. And I find in Blender that I typically don't have to do that as much, which is a good thing. So keep that in mind. So now hopefully that's very clear. It's a very simple tool. You're going to want to use this here and there. You don't want to overuse it though, because you do want to use things like if you just hit Control R, you have this tool here called the loop cut, which you're going to end up using to make perfect loops around the edge of the model, and so on and so forth. I don't want to get too distracted because that's kind of another video. Now go back to the K knife tool. Now a few other things that I want to point out. You can, for example, if I hit this, if I just left click and it's off the model, you notice at the bottom here, you're going to get all this extra information here, which is helping you out. So if you read here, if you hit escape, say right here, it just cancels out of the whole thing. And if you hit enter at any point in time, it will just confirm what you have. Now in that instance, I didn't actually left click again to actually confirm anything. So it just kind of canceled it out. If I hit enter, it stays with what I just did there and it won't add any more on. Okay, now I'm going to left click again. Now it'll say shift midpoint snap. If I hold shift, it will snap to the midpoint. Now let me just kind of do this. Now what's going to happen is I'm not holding shift and it's just kind of letting me click anywhere here. But if I hold shift, it'll snap to the middle of that, snap to the middle of that, snap to the middle of that, which can be very helpful if you're trying to keep things pretty clean and not look too crazy. Let me click again. Now, one thing that's important I want to go over is, for one thing, using C. If you use C, and I click off and hit enter, here's what happened. It clicked through the back of it. If I click on, if you go right here, you'll see C cut through. Right now it says off. If I hit C, it's on. I'm hitting C and it's going back and forth. If it's off, I hit enter, it did not cut through. But if I hit C, it will cut through. So that's important to keep in mind. And now also keep in mind, as always, you can just hit Alt Z and you can see through your model. So this can give you a preview of what you're doing as well. All right. Now there's one other thing that I definitely want to address. Best way to use this, and click again, you'll see down here XYZ orientation lock. So just like with moving without a gizmo, if I hit X, it will limit it to the X axis. If I hit Y, it will limit it to the Y axis. If I hit Z, it will limit it to the Z axis. So now if I just, again, let's just hit Y, I click across, perfect. So what's happening here when I hit Z, it was just going up in 3 dimensions, like this axis right here. I'm going to click again. This time I'm going to hit, okay, we'll hit Y, click again. Here, I'm going to click, hit X, and then I'm going to hit Z. And again, I got all that perfectly across. Another good practice would be to use the orthographic viewports. So if I hit the 1 key, I'm in front. It's telling me right here I'm in front. 7. And this is with the number pad on the right side of my keyboard if you have that. Now I'm in the top view. If I hit 9, bottom. If I hit 3, I'm in the right view. Now if I hit 5 in the middle, I'm in perspective. 5 again, it goes back to where I was. Now with this being on the right, if I click here, and I can see the axis here is blue. So that tells me it's going to be Z. Again, click again, hit enter. This is green, so that tells me it's going to be Y. Click here, hit Y, enter, or left click first and then enter. And then I can perfectly have these cuts perfectly horizontal across. That can be very helpful because a lot of times you're not wanting it to be loose like this. You don't want to have to, steady your hand to get it perfect across. Now, there's one other thing I do want to address is that, let's go back here. There's actually an easier way to do all that. If I just left click and go here, instead of hitting Y, I can just hit A. And if I just move, I'm not left clicking, I'm just moving around, and it's just snapping it to angles. So I don't even have to remember which angle I'm on. I can just hit A, and we'll just do that, do that, do that, do that. And that's generally how I would work because, I'm the type of Blender user where I move with the gizmo. I typically don't like to have to think, okay, what axis am I on? So that's the best way for me to be working, but you can work either way. Now I mentioned the, let me go back into here, pull Z out of that. I mentioned this loop cut tool. Just for example's sake, let me just sort of make a little something here, something here, make a little something here. Extrude, that and the other thing. Extrude. Okay. Now, if I go up here to the top orthographic viewport here, and now I'm going to try to use the loop cut tool, and I'm just going to click and drag, and you notice what it's going to do. It's going to keep this loop attached to everything here. It's going to move accordingly depending on, if it's a perfect straight line here, but it's kind of moving around because it's following this perimeter here. Go back up here to the top orthographic viewport. Now, if I use the knife tool and I click here, hit A, do that, it did that instead. So you're getting a perfect slice across here. So just keep that in mind, that's one of the ways in which this would be different to simply using a loop cut. Again, right there, I was not having C on. If I do that again, C and A pressed, here, A, and you can toggle C on and off and look at the bottom of the screen that it's changing. And then I'm getting this cut across here. If that's what you want, you've got it. Just keep in mind, sometimes you would want that on, sometimes you would not want that on. I'm just going to real quick for the end of this video, I'm just going to maybe just fool around with this a little bit. And just demonstrate a couple things. Here, click here, here. I generally get off of the knife tool by just simply hitting G. Do this, and go back to the knife tool. I can just click across here really fast if I needed that to be separated, for example. Screw this up. Then maybe here, click on this one. Again, you just notice it's snapping, but it kind of becomes that sort of tannish color. Again, G, and hit I and just sort of inset this. So I typically am not going to just, you typically aren't going to just sort of blah, 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 unless I'm just trying to maybe concept design something. If I'm just trying to fool around, if I'm just trying to picture something, or if I may be thinking I'm going to clean it up later, you can always do that. Say, for example, now let me get the vertices showing by hitting 1 here. You can always try to do something like this. This here. There's other ways to do this as well. You can always just, whoa, with this selected and with this selected, you can always just hit J and just join them together. But that's one way you can do it. Click here, hit J, and 3, and then go here, and you can always have this here. But again, usually more often than not, usually a little bit more structure going on. Theoretically, in a lot of situations, you'll find that you would just say, maybe here, A, B, boom. I'm going to go to, I'm going to double click this to select this whole thing, and then I'm going to Control B to bevel this up, and I'm going to scroll wheel, and then do that. And that's another way you can use it. And again, in that instance, you could just as easily have done a loop cut as well. So that's about it for this video. If you found this helpful at all, please let me know in the comments section below. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.